Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Shiro Watch Company. So Shiro Watch Co., they were actually founded just last year in 2023 with Japanese production and U.S. distribution. They aim to provide enthusiasts with essentially with timepieces that are both unique and familiar by blending iconic design with Japanese craftsmanship. In terms of type of watch, guys, I'm sure you can all tell this is a dive watch. Some key characteristics and something if you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want to find water resistance to boost some type of screw down crown. You're going to find something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelets. This is their Daibāzu Cookie Monster Sub, and it's essentially a modern Submariner homage featuring 904L construction. Also, just so you know, future runs may have different, they may actually differ in the dial text depending on the region, but these go for under $500 at just $438 direct. So that is actually pretty impressive when you consider the fact that, again, you're getting full 904L construction, and yeah, you're getting a very reliable Seiko movement there, so you're going to get hacking and hand winding. You're not going to get a clone movement or anything like that. So, you know, I know some of you guys might be surprised, like, whoa, what's a sub homage doing on the channel? But I will tell you guys, I have a soft spot for sub homages, and I think many collectors do, because I think collecting sub homages are actually a kind of crucial part of the collecting journey. At least it was for me in terms of my, you know, collection journey. So when I see stuff like this, you know, I still do have kind of a fond appreciation for it. And I will say that I do think that this particular sub homage is one worth talking about. So big shout out to Shiro Watch Company for sending this piece in for me to review. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. So of course you're going to have classic Submariner proportions here. 40 millimeters in diameter, 13.5 millimeters thick, so a little bit on the thicker side, and that is going to be thanks to that NH35 movement. But let me give it a quick little wipe. And you know what? It is a little bit of a warm summer night here in the Daibāzu studios, so don't mind the extra smudging you're probably going to find on this actually very nicely finished 904L construction. Now, the thickness, like I mentioned, 13.5 millimeters, while the lug-to-lug is 47.5. Full 904L, so that's going to have a little bit more of a brighter luster. You can see a little bit of a whiter kind of tone to it versus the grayish tones you might find in 316L, but it also is not necessarily stronger. It's more about corrosion resistance and, of course, the luster when you're thinking about 3116 versus 904. Of course, 904L is typically going to be a little bit more expensive and tougher to machine. So the fact that they were able to get these tolerances out of it, I think, are really nice. And again, this isn't trying to be some luxury watch. This is definitely meant to be worn, which is something that I would say a lot of Submariner-esque watches, and even Submariner itself these days, aren't necessarily targeting that audience. I mean, those watches are quite collectible, quite iconic, but something like this is definitely just screaming to be worn. So that's something I can appreciate. And I think that's something a lot of people appreciate about Tudor, is that those watches, you know, because of the price points and everything, they're just a little bit more palatable in terms of, hey, maybe getting them scuffed up or scraped up while you're out living your life and having adventures. I will say, of course, this, well under $500 is definitely going to give you more of that aspect in terms of, yeah, you're going to be totally fine taking this off the bracelet, putting it on a strap, throwing it on a NATO or something like that, and taking it hiking or whatever it may be. Of course, getting into the water is great for water sports because it still does have 100 meters of water resistance. I know that's not the full 300 you would think of, you know, from a Submariner, or, you know, the 200 you would think of from a sub homage, but with a screw down crown, it's completely usable. And you know what? It probably is just a matter of testing, to be quite honest, because, you know, these cases are pretty robust. And when I say these cases, I just mean, you know, these Submariner style cases that we see today. Now, In terms of the crystal, you get a nice flat sapphire with a chamfered edge there along the outer reaches with a nice level of inner air coating. And you're also getting a date magnifier that works well, as you guys can see there, if it wasn't for that minutes hand getting in the way. And then you're also going to have a nice 120 click bezel action. And when I say nice, I don't mean that generically. Like, this actually is... You hear it? That's pretty dialed in. Now, the coin grip is a little sharp, but again, that's, some people would want that. They would say, oh, that feels a bit more quality because it's a little bit sharper. I mean, it's not like sharp like it's going to hurt you, but definitely has more grip to it than you find on some other bezel grips there. So very nice mixture of smooth and clicky. I'd say more on the smooth side. So if you're somebody who likes it really ratchety, you might not love this. But if you're somebody that just enjoys the smoothness aspect, I think you're going to enjoy it. But as you can see with that glossy ceramic insert, now I have my smudgy fingerprints all over it. So I'm going to give that a quick wipe. Get it back here on camera. Check it out. Still looking good. I'm definitely digging that Cookie Monster sub colorway by having the blue and the black. I think it's just very, at the end of the day, it pops, but it's also still super versatile. Like, this can be worn in a ton of situations. And I don't know, like, I've seen a lot of, sub homages, and some are more or less obvious than others, but there's something about just throwing some kanji on there and mixing things up while keeping everything else, relatively true to form. I know that this brand really started out as doing a lot of kind of faux patina type of setups, and this is like one of their first modern style ones. I have to say, I mean, the maxi dial on here is done to an extremely high level. Again, they're not trying to say, hey, this is equal in quality, this or that. It's just a well-made piece, and again, it's about the Japanese craftsmanship as well. So they're really boasting more about the fit, the finish, and tolerances and whatnot. They're not trying to say it's a luxury level, but it's just, it's that Japanese vibe in terms of maximizing your value that I think a lot of people do associate with Japanese construction. Now, the crown is unsigned there. I'm not sure what they would put, what signature they would put on it if they did some level of kanji, or, you can see there's a bit of a crown on the dial. Maybe they could do that. That would look good too. The movement inside, although you can't see it, is going to be your Seiko NH35. So it's going to be, it's there. It has a date. It all works. It has a 41-hour power reserve, beats at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate, and that absolutely works. Getting into the dial, it's gloss black. You have these nicely applied indices. I mean, really, really well done, guys. Check that out. I mean, I am impressed. I mean, on paper, you think, okay, it maybe can be a bit of a gimmick, but I'm gonna be quite honest, guys. Like, as somebody who has collected quite a few Submariner homages, I think this is a good one. Like, it's not to the level of something like a Jeannot, where it's like, $1,800 trying to capture $3,500 kind of build quality. This definitely is, it's under $500, but I think they definitely are coming close to what you might find for, a couple hundred more dollars, $750 to $1,000 range. I think the fit and finish here is actually going to be quite comparable to that. And that's not just, whatever the cheapest of watches are, but even some of the higher value, higher finish watches that are out there, I think this is still pretty well done. So getting into the bracelet, 20 millimeter lug width, which is great with that 40 millimeter diameter, and you're getting solid links and end links, this oyster style bracelet with an 18 millimeter glide lock style clasp. So let's go ahead and see that. I would say the finishing on here is a little bit sharper to the touch, so some of these edges are not going to be as broken down, of course, as some of those higher end homages, or of course the real deal subs and whatnot, where you're not going to really find too many harsh edges. But here they're going to be a little bit sharper, so points of improvement for future iterations. But it's all going to be, in terms of functionality, very straightforward. So let me get this here. You can see that. Slide it back and forth, and that is it. So you just find the right groove and then you pop that back in and there you go. So pretty straightforward. You guys have seen, of course, stuff that looks like this before, but I will say in terms of the fit and finish, let me just give it a quick little wipe here, get some of that smudges off. Pretty good. Check out the tightness there. Again, a little sharp to the touch, but those edges are well done and the tolerances are quite tight. So maybe a little bit soft on the lines here for that raised center section, but nice thing is it lines up really well with the oyster style 3-link. So everything's nice there from that perspective, but let's actually get this on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears like you would expect a 40mm sub homage to wear, which is pretty perfectly, which is why the Rolex Submariner is such a beloved piece in terms of just the dimensions as well as the general proportions with the dial to bezel ratio, with those maxi indices. I mean, it all looks really, really good, just like you would expect. Of course, you can't, Shiro can't take too much credit for that. We can thank the geniuses over at Rolex for creating such a timeless and endearing design. But you can see there's a little bit of pop. So something a little different, something a little bit fun about this, and it's not crazy hype beast price levels. I mean, you could get stuff that is not going to be finished anywhere near this nice in terms of like something like a Bathing Ape or Bape collab or something like that, which is really going to be pretty low quality but high hype. Here you're going to be getting really no hype but extremely good quality, again relatively for the money. So for a $500 watch or $438, this is actually really well finished. I mean, apart from the sharp edges on that clasp, I mean, I really don't have too many complaints. First, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens there, you're going to get a bit of perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem a lot larger on wrist than it really is. So I like to just keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here so that you guys can get, still a detailed look, but just at a bit of a truer aspect ratio. So check that out. Although I do have a slightly larger than average 7.5-inch wrist, you guys can see that this thing sits really, really nicely. You can see those nice bezel teeth there, the grip. Of course, you can see my smudgy fingerprints all over that nicely lustrous 904L stainless steel case side, but everything has a nice wrap to it. And again, there are a lot of ways you can homage the sub case, and sometimes brands go a little bit overboard with how straight and flat they can be. Nice to see this one have a fair amount of contours that I think flow really well, and you can even get a better look at that male end link there. And you can see it's relatively sharp. Look at the finish on that. It doesn't look lazily done, and I can appreciate that. So for me, guys, again, this is not the end-all be-all watch, but I think it's a whole lot of fun, especially if you can appreciate this particular genre of watch. So with that, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes. That is some bright lume. You will notice green hands, and then not necessarily matching the dial or the bezel pip. So that is definitely an interesting choice. I don't know if that was something that was purposeful, or that's something that they're going to change. But, hey, it gives it a nice little pop. Something a little different here. But again, this is just, it's kind of all about its weird little quirks and not necessarily, ooh, man, I have to say the blue rendition on that, I don't know if it's the green handset playing off of that, but there's something really, really pure and just really full about the way that the blue lume is glowing. So that's interesting. Wow. It's just kind of caught me off guard a little bit there, especially looking at it through the screen there. But with all that said, of course, I do enjoy doing a little bit of a low light transition because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And I gotta say, this, just like you would expect, the glossy surfaces are quite glossy and reflective. That dial stays inky, deep, and dark, while you do get that nice vibrant pop from that ceramic bezel insert. So I think it just does what it's supposed to do here, guys. I think it might have been a little nicer to match the handset with the dial lume there. But again, you know, under $500, 904L stainless steel, you know, higher fit and finish tolerances. You know, it's hard to find a lot to complain about at that point, or at least feel okay complaining. So I think there's definitely a good level in terms of the trade-offs here that make this still a nice watch, especially for those of you who enjoy this genre. Now, I don't think this is for everybody. I don't think this is like the Alpinist or the Murph, you know, where it's just like, hey, this is great for any watch enthusiast. This is definitely great for somebody who loves these type of watches. And there are people that literally have collections of all Submariner homages. There are some people also that collect nothing but watch homages in general. So, you know, I can't hate, I can't discriminate from that perspective, and I do have to give watches like these their due. And in this case, yeah, I was pretty impressed, especially considering this is, you know, a brand that's been around for about a year. And I know that they do have some other aspirations, things that they're always refining. From speaking to them, I think they are going to eventually move to just 316L stainless steel and some thinner movements, you know, in terms of gauging what the market values. I think there's going to be a market for this, and people are going to like these and say, hey, I want 904L, and I dig the Seiko movement for the robust level of shock protection. But then there's other folks that want things a little thinner, that are going to want things to, you know, would rather save some of the money, you know, maybe by getting it in 316 versus 904. So I like that they're open to that, and that they're, you know, they're just curious, and you know, they just strike me as enthusiasts versus like some venture capitalists that are just, you know, looking to fill a particular void in the market. These guys actually are pretty passionate about this particular setup, tweaking that and trying to find something that feels very optimal. So for me, that's very admirable. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, very classic proportions. Of course, it may feel slightly taller than thinner sub homages, but yeah, it's at the end of the day, it feels like a dive watch. It feels like a tool watch. So I can't get too upset about it. In terms of model variants, definitely check the links in the description for options and availability, as you know, it's a newer brand and they're going to have some other offerings there, whether it be colorways or even some different designs. So check that out. I'll leave the link in the description. In terms of comparable models, guys, Submariner homages have really helped many brands establish themselves, you know, on the customer side, you know, and I should actually say, on the customer side, sub homages have been a huge part of many collectors' journeys. So they've helped a lot of brands, you know, kind of establish themselves within the market, and they've helped a lot of collectors, you know, to within their collection journey, to include my own. You know, but I think seeing a piece executed this well under $500 still catches my eye. So for me, guys, bottom line, while many brands have moved on from sub homages, I know there's a hardcore following out there who sometimes may even relatively exclusively collect these types of pieces. And for those who are into this genre, I think they'll absolutely find a lot to enjoy here. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you're not already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.